Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about the Springfield Kuna. Yes, this thing's been on the market for 9 months or more. It was announced last year and it's been getting a lot of reviews. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of it and how do I think it stacks up compared to other 9mm PCCs that are out there on the market. Do I think this is better than the other guns that are out there, or do I think it's a good competitor? That's what I want to talk about in today's video. So let's start off shooting a little bit. Now I do have this configured in a way that I would normally use it for personal defense type situations. It has a brace on it, has a Sig Sauer red dot sight. I have a little flashlight up here, and then a Huxworks 9mm suppressor. These things normally ship with a 9mm muzzle brake on them, and I cannot stand muzzle brakes, especially on PCCs. So let's do a little bit of shooting with this guy, and then let's take a closer look at the Kuna and see how she stacks up. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. All right, so let's talk about some of the features of the Kuna before we get into how I think it stacks up compared to other guns that might be on the market. So if you take a look at the PCC style, it's, a large format PCC is how these are typically referred to. So it is a handgun. You can get it with or without the brace on it, but I highly recommend picking up the brace. It's a very good quality brace, has aluminum strut here. This is the brace back here with a strap slot for you. When you lift up on it, you can fold it to the side and it will lock in place. To unfold it, you have to lift up again and it'll snap back into place. Coming forward, we have a pistol grip here that's compatible with AR-15 type pistol grips. There are lowers out there that I've heard people talking about. I haven't seen them or used one, but lowers out there that are capable of taking AR-15 triggers, which then also means AR-15 super safety type setups if that's something you're interested in. Given the popularity of this thing, I'm pretty sure somebody will come up with a super safety just for it though, because I think the volume of sales is high enough to warrant that. It has ambi fire control, so you'll find the selector lever on both sides of the gun. It has 2 pins to take it down, so it'll clamshell open like an AR-15. The sights are really interesting, so you have pistol type sights back here as the rear sight is folded down, and the same is true of the front sight. When it's folded down, it has just a blade like a pistol with a little dot on it and a U shape in the back. If you want, you can flip these sights up, and now you have an aperture sight with a pin in it, and you can adjust the elevation here, and you can adjust the windage back here. So the sights are really nice. Across the top, 1913 rail. We have full ambi controls on the mag release and the bolt stop bolt release, so it has an AR-15 style ping pong paddle on both sides of the gun. You can drop that bolt or you can lock it open very easily. Same with the mag release, present on both sides of the gun in the exact same location. The charging handle, you'll notice I have my charging handle over here on the right-hand side. It is easily swappable from one side to the other. I'll show you how to do that when we field strip it, but I've moved it over here for the moment because I have my Surefire light set up here on the left-hand side. Now, you'll notice that the handguard on this is really kind of short, and it's one of the complaints that a lot of folks have about the gun. So you have very little to work with. The muzzle ends right about here, so you want to be very careful when you're shooting it that you don't get a thumb out there in front of the muzzle. Having a can on it or some type of muzzle device can help you avoid that, or put a vert grip on it if you SBR it, or something like that. Just try to keep your hand away from that muzzle. Now, because it's all aluminum upper and a polymer lower, this aluminum upper is all one piece. It's monolithic. And so it's not like you can replace this handguard. Now, I have seen aftermarket handguards popping up that will attach to the gun, that will extend it a little bit so you can get more coverage out there so you don't have to worry about your hand as much. You have nice texturing here if you want to do the mag hold like that. That's another option to keep your hand away from that muzzle. But because the handguard is so short, I had to put this extension on here for the M-lock to get my Surefire out there, so I would still have room to actually hold the gun. If I mounted this in one of these other 2 M-lock slots, I'd have to like grab around the flashlight, right? So the handguard on it's very short. They have a standard 1/2x28 thread out there. My can's already starting to come loose, the Huxworks can. And that's pretty much it. It does have its own proprietary 30-round magazines, and this is chambered in 9mm. The early versions were chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson for law enforcement type contracts and military type contracts. I'm pretty sure they sold these to a unit, I believe, in Brazil, and it's a Croatian-made gun in 40 Smith & Wesson. On the U.S. market, though, I don't think the 40 Smith & Wesson is available, even though Springfield, I think, talked about it at EWA, making both cartridges available. Right now, it's just the 9mm. Looking at the Springfield website, I don't see 40 mentioned. So right now, it's 9mm, which I'm fine with because I don't care much about 40. And so here's their proprietary magazines, and there's some pros and cons. These, we'll get into those in this video. But overall, it's pretty conventional in its design. Now, it is roller delayed, so it's going to be like a current generation Stribog, for example. Matter of fact, a lot of people have said that this is basically a Croatian-made copy of the Stribog, the Iran Power Stribog. And I can see where people are coming up with that, especially when we get inside the gun. You're going to see there's some very close similarities. All right, so those are the features of the gun. Let's do a little bit of shooting here with it really quick. Let's head into the shack and tear it apart, look inside of it, and start to talk about how this gun stacks up to other guns on the market. So one other thing I didn't mention when I was going down the feature list is that the Kuna does have QD mounts back here on the receiver on both sides, single points. So if you want something up front, you'll have to add another mounting point if you don't want to do a single point sling setup. All right, so if you take a look at this on the inside, it's going to be very much like the Stribog. And so that's where the comments come from I've seen online where people are saying this is basically a Croatian-made Stribog. Now, what I will say is that the quality of the materials, the quality of the construction of the Kuna seems to be a little bit better than the typical Stribog, and I own a number of them. It does seem that it's just slightly better made, and there are some differences to its roller delay system. So let's take a look at that here really quickly. So first of all, I want to make sure the weapon is empty, the magazine is out, the bolt's locked to the rear, and there's nothing in the chamber. I'm going to go ahead and drop that bolt, let it go home. There's a pin back here in the rear. I'm going to pop this pin out, and that'll allow, and this is very much just like the Stribog, for this to hinge open. Okay, if you want to take it completely off, there's a pin in the front. You can pop the pin out in the front. Just like the B&T, which the Stribog was a copy of early on when it was blowback before it went to roller delay. This is very much the same. So the end cap, to take it off, you're going to pull down and pull back, and then it will come off. So it kind of goes in and up to kind of lock itself into place. Then you can use the charging handle, or you can reach up inside. I'm just going to use the charging handle, move this bolt and stuff rearward. Take out your recoil spring and buffer back here. And then I'm just going to slide the bolt out the rear. And unlike the Stribog, when I take it out, the roller doesn't automatically just fall out of the bolt group. As a matter of fact, this has a spring on it, which is not present on the Stribog. Now, the Stribog I have out here today is a 10mm, and so these parts are slightly bigger than the 9mm version, but the reason I brought the 10mm out is because I want to talk about the recoil impulse of the Kuna as it compares to other guns on the market. And I thought, well, why not? Let's bring out the Stribog, see how the roller just kind of fell out of the Stribog. This is the 10mm bolt, so I brought out the 10mm because I thought, well, let's talk about recoil impulse, because literally the 10mm is softer shooting than the 9mm Kuna, but we'll get into that here shortly. So as you can see, they're very similar, right? They have this piece out front, the 9mm shorter, I believe, than the 10mm version. Then we have the rollers back here, and this is the delay system. So when the bolt goes rearward, that roller lifts up, and it can move freely. When it goes back into battery, that roller will drop down, and that's what's going to cause a slight mechanical delay, keeping the breech closed just momentarily, long enough for the chamber pressures to safely drop so the gun can cycle. On the Stribog, it's just a little pin that just fits through there, and then it comes out. No spring. On this, to take it apart, I'm going to push down on this, slide the pin out, an extra piece will be in here. So the pin comes out, and then there's a little roller in there, and then the end piece. So you can see the end pieces are similar, how they are intended to push this roller down into its recess between the Kuna and the Stribog. So that's it for taking the bolt apart. This is the buffer system and recoil spring for the Kuna. This is what it looks like on the 10mm Streetbog. So again, you can see there are some pretty distinct similarities between the two guns, and that's why people are saying that the Kuna is simply a copy of the Streetbog. Whether or not it is, I don't know, but it's obviously inspired to some degree by it. All right, so putting this back together is a little bit more challenging. You saw how quickly I put the Streetbog together. I'm going to put this together by sliding this in. You want this cut out facing down. I'm going to push it in against spring pressure, drop my roller in that little slot, and then try to line my pin up. It just takes some finagling here to get it to go through. For whatever reason, I struggle with this, and there's probably an easier way to do it. I cannot get this pin to ever just go through. There. Okay. Got it. Now, to put it back in the receiver, make sure that that pin is pretty centered on the bolt. Set it in here, and it's going to stop right about there. I'm going to reach in there and collapse that roller by putting my finger in front of the bolt and pushing the bolt against my finger to collapse that roller a little bit. And then that's going to allow this to move forward, so then it can go into its little recess there. And then I'm going to take my recoil spring and buffer, stick that in there. Take the brace, put it in, push up. So I pushed in and up, and that'll keep that held in place against spring pressure. Hinge that closed, and now it's back together. Now the other thing you can do, if you want to move the charging handle around, it's going to do this to release the spring pressure, and pull the charging handle to the rear, pull it all the way to the rear, and then it will just simply pull out. I don't know why I'm struggling with this. There. It'll just simply pull out, and then I can put it in on the other side. I just got to line up the little sled here, the little shuttle, which I'm struggling to do. It's really not that difficult. And you just push it back in, and it goes forward, and now it's on the other side. All right. So it's actually pretty simple altogether on how it works. Now you can see how the charging handle gets really close to that Surefire right there. It's not really in the way. I can still grab it. So sometimes I'll run it on one side or the other. I'll leave it over on the left-hand side for now. One of the things I noticed, and this would be a con, one of the things I noticed about the Kuna is that for a roller-delayed firearm, it seems to be a little bit punchier than other roller-delayed firearms I'm used to shooting. Take the MP5, for example. The H&K roller delay system is considerably different and more complex. It uses two rollers that push out to the side into little locking recesses inside the barrel extension, where you saw how the roller delay system works on this. It's a single roller that drops down into a trough that initiates that delay sequence. So you would think that it would shoot soft. Typically speaking, simple blowback firearms like this Colt sitting here are punchy for 9mm PCCs, okay? So you would think with the roller delay system, it should be soft like an MP5. Well, watch this. I'm going to shoot the Kuna first, and we're just shooting some Federal 115 grain range ammunition. This isn't super hot stuff. And I do want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. I've been shooting their ammunition for many years, and there I go, just induced a malfunction. I've been shooting their ammunition for many years, and I love this stuff. Great company, great ammunition. So anyway, I just chambered around into it. So watch the recoil impulse of the Kuna as I fire it. And watch the ejection pattern. All right, so many times it kind of looks like the brass is just barely falling out of the ejection port. But the gun has motion to it. It just has an initial kind of punchy recoil impulse to it that you won't find at a gun like this SP5 from H&K. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this, and this thing is so much smoother. Watch this. Very, very smooth. I mean, one of the softest shooting 9mm PCCs I've ever shot. The Colt 9mm, this is an SBR. This is shooting the exact, all these guns are shooting the exact same 115 grain Federal. I'm going to go ahead and fire off a few rounds out of this. And this is just a straight blowback gun, no delay system whatsoever. So that's typical straight blowback. It's just got a really sharp recoil impulse to it, and you feel a lot more motion to the gun than you do with something like the MP5 or SP5. And then this is the Strebog in 10mm, 115 grain 9mm, 180 grain 10mm. This is some S&B ammo, which is a little bit hotter than your standard 10mm range ammo. And watch the recoil impulse on this, on the Strebog. That thing is buttery smooth for a 10mm. So what's the difference? Out of all of these, the Kuna has more recoil than the 10mm, has more recoil than the SP5, has a little less than the 9mm Colt, which is direct blowback. So of the other delay guns out here, this is the punchiest of them all. Now, I'm not talking about a ton of recoil, and in a semi-automatic, it's not going to make or break the gun. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't buy it because it's just too punchy. I'm just saying for a roller delayed firearm, it doesn't really seem to reap the benefits of the roller delay system. Now, there are some aftermarket products out there from HB Industries where you can increase the buffer length, which will shorten the throw of the bolt, which is another con we'll get into a little bit later. And they have 20% increased recoil springs in terms of power, 20% increase in power. This is all designed to reduce that recoil impulse. So I'm not the only one that notices this. I've seen other people talk about it, but there's third-party market people out there already making products to kind of tame that kind of sharp, punchy recoil impulse of the Kuna. One thing I have noticed about the Kuna is that when the gun goes dry, this is an empty magazine bolt locked to the rear. If I have the muzzle slightly up and I hit the magazine release button, the magazine won't fall out on its own. If I hold the button in and rotate the gun down, right about there. So it almost has to be perfectly horizontal before the magazine will fall out of the gun when you go to reload it. So if you have the muzzle slightly up and you hit that button, you're going to have to strip the magazine out and put another magazine in, or bring that muzzle down so gravity can do the work to help get the magazine out. So some of the problems other people have experienced and I have not, but I'm just going to relay them to you in case you're curious about picking one of these up. And I just want to let everybody know about the problems I've heard of, along with some of the issues that I've already pointed out in this video, primarily the recoil impulse and one other thing I want to show you guys here in a minute. So the Kuna itself, like I said, seems like a high quality manufactured item, but it's not without its teething issues. Pretty much any first generation firearm is probably going to have some of those teething issues. One of the things a friend of mine noticed, and I bought this firearm. This was not sent to me from Springfield Armory. I bought this from Boise Black Rifle. My buddy Matt that works over there sold it to me, but he's been doing some extensive testing for the last 8-9 months with his Kuna, and going off his information, the original magazine that these shipped with, they're identifiable by a notch in the follower. So if you look through the translucent magazine, you'll see a notch, like a U-shaped notch in the bottom of the follower. The early generation magazines with that notch, the last couple of rounds, especially when the magazine starts to get dirty with suppressor use especially, it's going to tilt and it's not going to pick up those last 2 rounds, and it's going to cause a malfunction. So to solve that, later magazines, you can tell them apart by looking just at the follower. They don't have that notch cut in them, and they're going to have a slightly heavier recoil spring, according to Matt. I don't have one of the earlier magazines. So the early magazines appear to be a bit problematic. They are proprietary, as I've mentioned, and so they weren't 100% reliable, especially when they started to get dirty. Now, also people have mentioned, Matt has not seen this, I haven't seen this, but the magazine's cracking. So if you load them up, drop them, things like that, the polymer's been reported to crack. Now, I haven't seen it happen, but I just wanted to let you guys know that that's one of the cons that are out there. Now, one of the things I noticed years ago with a brand new firearm then from PSA, the AKV9, was that when I went to unload the gun and I had the muzzle up and I pulled the bolt back, watching the ejection port, holding the gun like this, I would have live rounds and spent cases fall back into the action of the gun. Believe it or not, the Kuna has the same problem. So I'm going to go ahead and lock the bolt to the rear here. I'm going to take a spent case and just stick it into the chamber here really quickly. So I set several out because I tend to drop things and fat finger stuff. I'm just going to put that into the chamber. I'm going to drop the bolt. Now, if I hold the gun up and pull this slowly to the rear, see how it just kind of releases that spent case? And if I bring this all the way to the back, that can actually drop into the trigger group. So looking inside there, it's gone. That round has fallen back into the trigger group. It's actually holding the bolt back at the moment, so it's in there at an odd angle. But previously, we'll do it one more time. Right now, it's got the bolt locked to the rear. So, and it's not releasing it. So right now that case is like jammed up the entire action of the gun. So I can't get the bolt to go home. So there you go. I didn't plan on that. Usually it just falls back into the trigger. There we go. And it just fell out. Usually it falls into there. But that time it jammed up the entire action of the gun. I had to drop the trigger mechanism down to get it to come out. I've seen people speculate that because these early guns were designed around the 40 Smith & Wessons, the dimensions are slightly different, that perhaps that's why it has that opening back there that allows rounds to fall into the trigger group. Other people have said perhaps it's because the originals were designed to be machine guns. You have additional components in the trigger group, and when you take out those machine gun components, it leaves a gap there, and that's what's allowing them to fall back in. I've never seen one of these in full auto, so I don't know what's causing it. All I know is it's a real problem, potentially, right? And I know some of you watching this are going to say, I fired 10 million rounds through my Kuna. It's never happened to me. You're just making stuff up. But I'm not the only person that has noticed this. And this is an HB Industries product, and this has an increased spring rate, right? So it's going to increase the recoil spring rate to reduce that recoil I was talking about. But the buffer is also longer on this replacement part. And HB Industries cites right on their website, the whole purpose of this is to, there's the factory buffer and there's the HB Industries buffer. So it shortens the throw of the bolt. And HB Industries says on their website, one of the purposes of this is not only to reduce recoil, but also to minimize the likelihood of a round falling back into the action of the gun. So they're actually making parts now to resolve the issue that I just showed you. So I'm not just making this up. There's companies investing time and money into solutions to that problem. Where do I stand on the Kuna? What do I think of it? Well, it has its teething issues, right? Even the Strebog, if you go back in my library, had its teething issues. Some of those were pretty severe functionally, but they resolved them over time. And the minor issues, relatively minor issues that people are having with this gun, it looks like Springfield's already being responsive to some of those issues. They already on a second generation magazine, according to my buddy Matt. So they appear to be listening. So if it's a real issue with cases falling back into the action, things like that, I'm sure Springfield will work to rectify that. In the interim, you do have other solutions from the third-party market, as I pointed out. Price-wise, it's very much in line with the Strebog. So it's a dealer's choice. Which do you prefer? I do think that the Kuna manufacturing quality of components and fitment and things like that is a step above the Strebog, but the price is almost identical if you look at them braced and unbraced. These are available braced and unbraced from Springfield, and this is the brace that they sell with it. So that's totally up to you which one you prefer. I've already pointed out the fact that I think other PCCs like the H&K SP5 shoots much softer, but it's also twice or more the cost of this particular firearm. So is it worth it? I don't think the recoil's that bad. So overall, I think it has a nice trigger pull on it. I think the quality of the manufacturer is good. It has some of those little quirks, but none of those would keep me from saying that I would buy it again. I am not sad with my purchase. I like it, and I'm interested to see how this thing evolves. Will they offer different versions of it and different chamberings? I guess time will tell. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you have a Kuna? Have you ran into problems with cases falling back in the actions? How about your magazines? Have they split? Because I've not seen that happen, but I've seen it discussed online. Let me know in the comments section down below, because many times the comments that you guys post give us ideas for future videos. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue bringing you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Right here on YouTube, you got the support button, or subscribe button, I should say. Underneath the video player you're watching right now, you can mash that button and support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. I want to thank you guys for 18 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.